everyone. Welcome to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast. We're happy you're here. On the podcast, we're certain that you'll relate to the caregiver stories and find comfort with your honorary sisters. Now, before we start, I want to remind you to go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, and sign up for our newsletter. It's full of useful information that you can immediately use. Now, let's learn more about today's guest. Are you doing?
Oh no, the singing's going to start. Y'all, I know you're used to it by now, but after 50 years, I still can't take it.
I feel like I want to sing the good morning song, but I wonder if people get it, like they're tired of it. So
go ahead and sing it. Just do it.
How about this one? It's a beautiful morning.
Oh no. I haven't heard that one.
I think I'll go outside for a while. I think the voice is going to find me. They're going to be like, oh, we should do a clip with Natalie.
Dream on, dream on.
Yeah, Beverly's like, do not quit your day job, literally. We've got an awesome guest today, Jay. I'm so excited.
We just got to get busy. We got to get to work, Natalie.
Let's do it.
But we're not going outside. We're staying inside, and we're going to get
we're staying right inside, and we're going to talk to Beverly.
Okay, so let me tell you what we got today, everybody. So we have got Beverly Barnett with us, and she says, get ready for this, because this is not me. She says nursing is not just a job. It is her life mission. Natalie, you and I pass out at the sight of blood, so.
We do. It's a good thing Beverly would be our person. She'd be our person.
She says nursing chose her. She is a registered nurse. She is an educator. She is a health and wellness advisor, and she is a legal nurse consultant. In her bio, she said chronic illnesses deprive families of precious moments together. And I love that. From her husband's battle with cancer to the most recent diagnosis for her father and her brother, Beverly is committed to men's health. She says men should lead by example, adopting and demonstrating proactive health behaviors. And I said, that is a preach moment, sister. She has 4 straightforward steps to foster a proactive health mindset that I cannot wait to discuss later in the show. Beverly, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get started, Natalie.
Let's do it.
Great. Thank you all for inviting me.
So Beverly, you have nursing is that's what got you started. You said it started with a childhood illness that kind of got you into, okay, I'm going to care the rest of my life. I'm going to care for people.
And that is exactly what happened when I was around 12 years old. I developed a kidney problem.
Oh, wow.
And I lived in a rural town and not a lot of access to health care, but we had one doctor there.
Okay.
One clinic. And so I went there for several weeks, the whole summer. Bummer, too. Out the whole summer, sick the whole summer. But when I would go there, and that was the day where we had segregated time. You're in this, blacks went in one end and whites went in one end. And I had to sit there and wait until all the white people were seen before I could go be seen. But then as I got sick of the nurses, so I said, no, she's not going to wait. We're just going to put her in a room. And they started talking to me while I was back there. So I just developed a relationship with them. And I decided at that point, I'm going to be a nurse.
That is the heart of a nurse through and through.
You had a heart to serve. Are you sure it wasn't? I feel like you got a little church in you too.
Yeah.
Of course.
I love that. Of course.
Of course.
I mean, there's a calling to serve. And I mean, I think, God had big plans for you, ma'am.
Yeah.
I can definitely tell he had big plans for you.
And I accept the plans that God sent my way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the best outlet.
I know.
That's exactly
never
right.
fight
That's
those.
exactly right.
Okay.
Never fight the plans. So right out of high school, you go to nursing school, you just start on this path. And obviously, like somewhere in there, you're getting married and you've got all of this stuff going on. But we want to talk about the care that has jumped into your life because it's got you to where you are now, which is you're on another mission, and it's to educate people. But what came up first? Who did you start caring for first, Beverly?
In my family, it was my husband.
Yeah.
He had developed colorectal cancer.
Yeah.
He was stage 4 diagnosis, which we know that was advanced stage, which really depressed me a lot because here I was a nurse and my husband was late diagnosed. So that was really depressing for me. But he was projected to live maybe 3 to 6 months, but he lived 3 years.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I attributed it to God first, and then I attributed it to the center we went to for his treatment. And then, of course, he stayed home the whole time.
Yeah.
And, even when he got to where he couldn't do anything, I just kept him at home because that's me. I'm not going to, I wanted to take care of him until the end. So from him, his death led me to do other things that I thought God wanted me to do. And one of those things was to become a men's health advocate, a Black men's health advocate.
I know that's an important part of your whole, like the mission, like what you're out there for. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like because you're like out there, like men need to be proactive. Is there a sense of that comes from your husband that you feel like, did he go to the doctor a lot? Was he the one that was proactive, or was he, that husband, like my husband, that's like, I'll get a physical every 10 years. Like, was he that person? Why is that so important? Your passion?
He was that person.
Yeah.
He would not go.
Yeah.
And he would not go. He had told me one time that he wouldn't go into the doctor until he was on his deathbed. And I was like, oh my God, I said, how you going to know if something is going on in your body if you won't go get an annual checkup at least, but he was forced to go to the doctor by his employer through a health program. Yeah. And that's the only reason why he had a doctor when he got ill.
Beverly, what do you attribute that to based on your, how long were you guys married before he passed, if you don't mind, or together?
35 years. We were married 35 years.
So, so you know him pretty well. And was it historical? Because I know for some folks, there is kind of a stigma and a concern around seeing the doctor and things like that. What do you attribute that to, especially with him being a male? Because typically males are not great about going to the doctor.
Well, one of the things he thought was he was invincible. He didn't think anything could happen to him. That was the main thing. And he was in his 50s, but he looked really, really young, and he'd never been ill. Yeah. So he did not think anything could happen to him. But for a lot of men, and he's one of them, I don't know if they have a fear of the doctor or they don't know what to do when they go to the doctor. And maybe they're going to get the same things said to them every year, and they don't know what to do afterwards. So they just, try to ignore it or put it off. But basically, they ignore their bodily function. He told me that he was not aware of his body until he was ill. He didn't pay any attention because he said, oh, it's just a little thing. I'll get over it. And a lot of times when you have early symptoms of a disease, you'll have those early symptoms, and then sometime they will just go away and they'll become dormant. But that doesn't mean that inside your body that it's not still there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that was, and later on, some other members of his family got sick and they didn't go to the doctor either. But some of them were, had a better outcome than he did. Yeah. But I think it was family ill.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. This sounds very generational. Right. Like this is a family thing, and this is really learned. And that's what I meant by do you think that this was something like his parents? This is a family thing that they typically don't go to the doctor. The grandparents didn't go, or his parents, the grandparents, because it not maybe it's access, maybe it's fear, maybe it's concern, because you're down from Louisiana too, because you're in a southern area, and sometimes where you live can impact decisions made and access and even perception of access where it may have not been at one point, but it is now available now.
Well, I think that when he was a child, he did not have health care because he stayed in a city, and that hospital was there. I don't know how long that hospital was there. I think it was for a long, long time. But I believe that because of economic problems, they didn't go to the doctor. So they just tried to treat themselves at home. And we did too, where I lived, because there was just clinics. Well, they used to call it the charity hospital in Jonesboro, where I lived. And many throughout the state had charity hospital, and that's where you would go. And I don't know what kind of treatment you receive there, or, sometimes it depends on the people you meet, whether you'll go back or not, how people treat people makes a difference in whether they will go back to the doctor or not, or will seek health care. Yeah. So I think that was part of it. It was just economics and maybe what interactions he had with people. But from what I gathered, he was never really sick, maybe a little cold or something. And he told me they just ignored it and he got better.
Yeah. Just have a little drink of whiskey and honey. That was kind of that's a rural thing,
They call it a toddy. That's right. That's right. A hot toddy. Or they had these old remedies of making different tea out of different things,
They don't sell those hot toddies at Starbucks. That's true, Natalie. If Starbucks would like to sponsor us, this is my
sorry, that's not the same thing.
My toddy has got some steamed soy over here. For those who can't see, I'm drinking my English breakfast tea with my soy. So.
Beverly, let me ask you a question, because I know that you have a definite focus on Black men. And we met with Candace Straw. Probably she was one of our first podcast members. And one of her missions, and it is a mission, her mother had the same issue. And I think it was Thanksgiving evening. They went to the hospital. Her mother was sick and she had a very advanced stage of cancer. Same situation. But she said she felt like in their community that there wasn't a lot of push. There was no education out there that said, you need to go to the doctor the way there are in a lot of other communities. Do you feel like that's one of the reasons why you feel like that is kind of a calling for you, that you feel like your community in itself, the Black men also you need to also yell out to them, hey, you definitely need to go to the doctor because that education is not out there in your community?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think and you have to understand something about Black men's health, is that a lot of times back in the day, there may have been programs out there for families, but they didn't include men in the programs. And it was the wife or if they were divorced or they lived with them, he could not get access to care. Okay. So, and then secondly, a lot of men worked in different type of jobs where they didn't have, especially labor job, where they didn't have sick time. They went to work no matter how sick they were because they had to support their family.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right, Beverly.
And they couldn't take a day off. But that stems from slavery, because in slavery time, you had to work regardless of what you felt. And if you didn't go out there, you could get sold off. So therefore, I got to go to work no matter what happened. And then after slavery, times was so hard, so not missing a day of work was just unacceptable because the family was going down if you didn't go to work.
And that's where I want to jump in. Yeah. That's where we talk about in the mental health field. I think about generational stories and it's passed down the experiences. We don't do this. We go to work. We have to take care of the family. And it's passed down from generation to generation. And so I understand the why by the fact that you have to. I mean, to be honest with you, I know that, I think about times that our dad went to work and he went to work sick, and it's not the same in the fact of historically, but in poor areas, I think there is that common thread of you can't take off. And then I think about even the way, and Beverly, since you're a nurse, especially, even if the way that you think about like Medicaid, for example, because I work with Medicaid population and I look at programs, and Medicaid covers women and children, because over 18, you're not getting coverage unless you meet this high threshold of poverty level. But it's typically leans into women and children, especially pregnant women and children, and it covers you for a certain window. And you saying that resonates with me so much because of, it doesn't say men. It doesn't say, hey, dad, stay well so wife and baby can do things, or partner and baby. You know what I mean?
That's absolutely true. Yeah. And the other thing that was I found when I first moved here, and I was a nurse. I came to nursing school, and I moved to Shreveport, and the community hospital, the first time I went up there, I was like, why are all these people sitting out here all over the place? There's tons of people just out here. Oh, you just have to come up here and wait. They didn't have appointments at that time. You just came up there, and you may have to sit out there and wait 24, 48 hours before you could be seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I want to back up a little bit. Oh, and actually, before we back up, because I want to back up, Jay.
Yes.
Let's take a break real quick. And let's take a break.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but my inbox is always cluttered with useless emails. But there's one I always open, the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver newsletter. You may say, Natalie, what makes yours so special? Well, I'm biased, but don't just take my word for it. Here's what our subscribers say they love. First, it comes once per month, and you can read it in under 5 minutes. Next, you'll find amazing tips and resources to use in your everyday life. And who doesn't love a recommendation? These sisters do, which is why we share sister-approved products and discount links to save you time and money. And of course, you're first to know about the upcoming month's confessions. Just like our show, you're guaranteed to relate, be inspired, leave with helpful tips and resources, and of course, laugh. Go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, to sign up for our newsletter today.
Hey, everybody, we're back. We're here with Beverly Barnett, and we're talking about men. Hopefully, if you guys are listening, it's not bad, though. I mean, we're talking about you, men, we're talking about your health, too, because we're very concerned. You need to step up. That's all I'm saying. Let's get back on it. Well,
and let's actually get back on this.
Okay.
And so I want to go back because, we're going to talk about the men's health,
right,
Beverly. But this is about the caregiver.
Yeah, it's about Beverly.
And Beverly, it's about you, girl. And you ran right over that caregiving spot for your husband real fast.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I'm gonna push you back and say, I need to know some more details. And really, it's about how caregiving impacted you. You're a nurse. Your husband's sick, right? You've been together 35 years and your husband gets sick. You're working full time, right?
That's right.
And tell me what's going on and what was it like to care and how do you navigate that and that sort of thing? Like, tell me what's going on with you and then the relationships.
Well, when my husband got sick, I'm going to have to say this, and I was really angry at him. I was angry at him because he did not go to the doctor. And here now the family is going to be greatly affected by what he did not do, his actions. And that's for me because I was married to him for 30-something years. I was in my 50s. And a stage 4 diagnosis is a terminal diagnosis. And so what was going to happen to me after he, if he died? That was one of the things I thought about. But I let it pass over me because I had to focus on him because he had chemotherapy every other week for 3 years. And he would have a couple of breaks to see if it would go into remission, but it would come right back. Yeah. So every other week he had chemo, and he was he had a side effect, what they call it, intractable nausea and vomiting, meaning that nothing could stop it. And for the week after his chemo, he was practically bedridden. He couldn't go out the house. He couldn't do anything because he was so nauseated. And so, of course, me being a nurse, I come up with all these little things that I thought could help him with his nausea, but nothing really did. So when I would go to work, we had one son that was in college. And so he arranged his classes where he would be through with his classes by noon. And so that he could come home and he'd get him some food, make sure he was okay. And then he would be there until I got home.
Wow. How old was your son at that time? You said college age?
Right around 20 or 21, something like that.
That's even at 20, that's mature. That is,
that's pulling on the, forcing you to get real mature, real fast.
Absolutely. And that forced the whole family, because I have 2 other children, grown children, who were living in Dallas, and they had their own life, but that forced them to make some changes in their life and changes about what they're going to do with their health too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how did you talk about caring for your husband as a family? How did you all, I hear you saying the younger son who was closer by to help with that? Any conversations going on? Anything that your kids said, like, Mom, we need to plan for this, or we need to, any conversations that you had with them, like, hey guys, you need to make sure you know what I mean? Like, any conversations as a family around caregiving?
Well, at first they were coming home like they usually do for entertainment.
Oh, I love that. Okay. What do you got? So what are you going to do?
I would cook and I would do all this kind of stuff. So eventually I said, listen, you all, I can't do this. I said, when you all come home, you'll come home to help me take care of him. Because if I come home, you come home and I've got to cook this that you like and we do this and we do that, that's not helping me. Wow. So he's got to help me. And I remember one time we went to somewhere and all the family was get together. My husband was 6'4". Well, my son is 6'4". And so he was stumbling. And so my son says to me, Mom, you need to come back because Dad is about to fall. I said, no, you need to stay back. And this other son, you need to be on the other side of him because if he falls, I can't stop him, but you two can. And that woke them up. They was like, what?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, how tall? I'm just curious, Beverly, because you don't look super tall. I mean, I know you're sitting, but how tall are you?
5'4".
Oh,
hey, boys.
Whoa. Holy cow, you're in the armpits. Our nephew is 6'6".
So they were so used to me taking care of him and doing things. And I was a nurse. And see, that was the other thing. I was a nurse.
So absolutely. You could do anything.
So they didn't even, sometimes people don't see the progression of a person's illness. And what had happened, he had chemo that week. Yeah. But we had planned something, but he said, I can still go. I can go.
Yeah.
But that was probably the last time we went somewhere after his chemo because I made that decision. He says, we'll go. I'm going to be okay. I said, no, we're not going to do that. The week of chemo, we're going to do nothing. So that means we had to isolate and we lost contact with our social circle when you can't interact anymore. So that was, for me, I needed that, but I lost that and I continued even after he died to reintegrate in it. It was hard and I wasn't successful at doing that. So I had to find a different,
What do you think, Beverly, if you don't mind sharing about it? What was hard for those people? Because here's the thing. We've been there and I've been there especially. I mean, Jason really was the one who lost friends, who didn't know what to say. It was so uncomfortable for them. And, I think about how hard it is for people who want to ask, like they want to ask about how they're doing or ask how you're doing, but they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. It's fairly uncomfortable. You just kind of stumble around it and don't really want to talk about it because we don't like to really talk about bad. I mean, look at Facebook, for goodness sake. It ain't nothing but good.
Right.
Like living my best life. Here I am. Every day's rainbows and unicorns. And we all like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Here's the golden dumpster. So was it that you felt like friends were pulling away? You know what I mean? So where do you see that, you think?
Well, I don't think that they meant to do that. Yeah. I don't think that they meant to do that. But it was a lot of your friends sometimes are maybe more acquaintances than real friends, okay?
Yeah.
And so when something happens like this, those people will kind of drop off your radar.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a small sect of friends that will be around and they will ask you, well, how's he doing this week? Is there anything I can do for you? And if people ask you if there's anything you can do, tell them what you can do. At first you're reluctant to do that because you don't want to seem as if you need help. I got it. I got it. As they say, I got it and God got me. Okay, but God sent you somebody to say, can I help you? How can I help you? And that's basically, you just have to accept the help.
Yeah. That's hard. That's like the parable where the person's standing on the roof and the flood's coming. And honestly, like we've all heard it and it's like the boat comes by, the helicopter comes by and something else comes by. And then ultimately they drown and they get to heaven and they're like, God, why didn't you, I prayed for you to save me. And he was like, I sent you 3 different places.
I sent you a boat and a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's so important. I think what you just shared is something that's such a good reminder for all of us to not be afraid to say what you need and to make it uncomfortable for someone else. Like you may think, well, they don't really want to help me. I know that. But the reality is don't tell their story for them.
Yeah.
Right.
To allow them to say that look on their face like, oh, crap.
Right.
Like you need something.
And that's absolutely true, because if you say, yes, I need you to do this for me, and they do that and then they don't come back, then you know. Then you know
they didn't really,
you were lying.
They didn't mean it.
Ask them. That's not the person that, that's not the person to go to. That's not going to be your go-to person. So,
and they're not your
some people who
Yeah.
will, what we call your go-to person, and that person will stand by you. And I had a good friend, constantly came by my house, come to get me out of the house. Because nobody really thought about that. I needed to be out of the house either. I was a nurse. I'm a nurse. So when you're a nurse, no one thinks about what that means.
Yeah.
You're a nurse, so you can take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it goes back, and this is, I think especially if you've been a caregiver, you feel this way. It's I always joke about it being like when a person's pregnant, everybody's all about that pregnant person.
That's right.
And then when they have that baby, they're all about that baby. And they're like, is there a mother somewhere around here? Is there? And the mom is just sitting there thanking God for just a break for a second and think about it. And so it's very much like, how's Jason? How's Jason? And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. I need people to really hear me say that. There's nothing wrong with that. Every now and then, if you were to say, how are you doing?
Yes.
And you mean it with sincerity.
And you mean it.
Sometimes allowing me to say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't diminish what Jason was going through. It doesn't diminish what our mom's going through. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't diminish that. It allows you to have your space and be able to be your individual self and be authentic and say, I'm not okay. And I think if people were to ask us that, then I think they're more likely they would get the answer. We would be more open to saying, I'm not okay. I could use some help here.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this, when you first get that diagnosis of cancer, it's like a death toll.
Yeah.
And right there in your head, and I know my husband, he said that, and I did too, that I'm going to die. I'm going to die. But you don't want people to know. Yeah. So sometimes it's the stigma of having cancer too.
Yeah.
That you're probably going to die, that you're not going to be here. And you didn't want pity, people feeling sorry for you, because I can still do this and I can still do that. And that was an important thing, is that you continue to be able to do what you can do for yourself. So at first, my husband didn't even want to tell anybody. Even when we did to a cancer treatment center, he still didn't want to talk about that he had cancer. It took him a long time. They talked to him. The other clients talked to him, patient, and they would ask him questions. At first, he wouldn't even talk to them.
He's like, I don't have cancer. I'm just here. Just here visiting. Yeah. So
that's right.
It is interesting because I think what it does, though, Beverly, it forces you to recognize your mortality. It forces all of us to recognize it, and it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
We don't normalize death and dying. We don't normalize, even though we all know we're still at 100% mortality rates. I mean, everybody's dying.
That's
okay?
Right.
Nobody's living forever. And here's the thing. I don't want to live forever, but I want to live a good, healthy life, and I don't want to live a premature life. And I think about that. And so Jason very much did not want to talk about it. He didn't want to acknowledge what it meant. Because, I mean, here's the sad part. Had your husband gone to the doctor, right? They potentially could have found it earlier.
Yes, because I knew something was wrong with him. I kept telling him, I said, there's something going on with you. I said, look what you're doing. I said, he says, oh, no, Beverly, all men do this. All men do that. That's nothing. I said, no, that's too much. So one day I came home and he had been out mowing the yard. And I said, wearing you a gray color. He says, what? I said, you are gray. I said, you need to go to a doctor. I said, because your color, I said, you don't look right, And I said, come look at yourself.
Yeah.
Look how gray your skin is, you know? So I think that he says, no, he says, nothing's wrong. He kept saying, nothing's wrong with me, Beverly. Don't worry about it. I'm okay. But he wasn't. And he didn't go to the doctor until he was forced to go to the doctor for a medical emergency, no matter what I said. But I'm going to tell you a story. About a year after he died, I was at his sister's house, and one of his brothers was there. And he told me he had colon cancer also, but he was in the military or something. So he told me, he says, I started this belching and burping all the time. And I looked over there at him, and I remember, and all of us, my daughter and I, we looked at him, and we remembered when my husband was doing the exact same thing, and he would not go. Absolutely.
It sounds a little bit like denial. Did his brother have cancer before him?
No, I don't know.
So it was after.
I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think so. I think he had it first. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. But when he said that, I looked at him, and I thought about that, and it was about 2 years before he ever went to the doctor that he had those symptoms. I was like, oh my God, 2 years is a long time to have a cancerous tumor inside your body.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. We're going to take a break, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go into this break saying, I don't blame you for being mad. I don't blame you. I'd have been mad too. And people would say, oh my gosh, I've said it before. I mean, in my mind, I was the only person who argued with a cancer patient. And because he argued back with me and I wasn't taking it. That my personality is middle child. And I'm like, oh, not today, Satan. And so I'm like, I'm not your punching bag. And it's not that Jason intentionally did it, because he was mad. He was mad. And I was a safe person for him to be able, because he knew I wouldn't leave. Like, think about who your people are. We've always said sometimes you hurt the ones you love the most because you feel the safest. Yeah. And so I was never going to leave him. You don't get to take that anger out on me. Let's find a different path to be able to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Let's take a 5-second break.
Well, alrighty then.
If you like confessions, we have another podcast we'd love to recommend. The Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast with Elizabeth Miller. As a fellow Whole Care Network podcaster, we love how Elizabeth chats it up with family caregivers and dives into their caregiving and self-care strategies. Just like us, Elizabeth believes that family caregivers are the experts in caregiving. Beyond the informative conversations, Elizabeth reveals the tried and true resources and practical self-care tips that empower caregivers to prioritize their health and happiness. You can find the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast wherever you download your favorite podcast, or go to the website at happyhealthycaregiver.com.
Hey everybody, we're back here with Beverly Barnett, and she shared the story of her and her husband. And I know, Beverly, that your husband had a short, they said 3 to 6 months when he was diagnosed, and he lived 3 years. Right. But after that, because we talk with people, and he did pass, you've taken the mission basically, and you've moved. Tell me about moving on, because a lot of times people don't talk about after care. You never stop caring. And I know even recently you're back in care. I know you've had some things that have come up with your father, your brother. And so even the last 12 months. So let's talk about some things in your aftercare, back in care scenario.
Okay. Well, after he died, I was depressed, but I knew I was depressed, and that's normal. But it took me about 2 years, but I had to have some help.
Oh, yeah.
And what happened was one of my classmates, high school classmate, was a life coach, and we connected on Facebook, and he asked me to DM him, which I didn't even know what DM was. Okay.
Wonder what the D stands for. I'm like,
message me. Okay.
Oh, direct message. Thank you, Beverly.
Okay.
Thank you, Beverly, for educating me on that one, because I'm sitting there, what's D?
And so he said to me, Beverly, your posts are so sad. I want to help you. And I'm like, posts are sad? I didn't even realize.
Oh.
So he was a life coach. He says, I want to help you. And I got that help.
Wow.
And after he died, I was no longer a wife. My kids were grown. So I was, a mother. And I didn't even know who I was after that. So I said to myself, I had to reinvent myself to who I am now. I'm not that same person because I went through a life-altering event. You cannot be the same person. And you have to find a way to move forward. Yeah. And that's what I did. When I finally realized there was nothing else I could do to help my husband, but I could help other Black men.
Yeah.
And that's what I decided to do. Help other Black men. But in the process of helping other Black men, I found out that many men, no matter what their race or ethnic background is, they will not go to the doctor. They will not.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
And so I kind of broadened it a little bit, to include all men, because I'm a nurse first, so I don't really care about your race or anything like that. I just want everybody to be healthy. But I have that, I have that passion for Black men because that comes from my husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to continue his legacy some kind of way,
Yeah, absolutely.
Through me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead, Jay. No, you go.
No, you go.
No, you go.
And we didn't ask about this, and this is an important question. We talk about your husband and your kids. Were you all prepared when you started this journey, or with your father as you come up, with your brother, with powers of attorney, with those are important questions, I feel like. Were you and your husband prepared for this? Because you've been married for 35 years, wills and all that stuff.
No.
Were you all prepared?
No.
Okay.
Just okay. But when he got sick, he says, "You're my power of attorney." But I would become his power of attorney anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So, but when my dad has it. Okay. Because he's at the VA. So that's one of the things that they did at the VA. But my brother, I don't know, he put me down as his person of contact, but he didn't do a POA.
Yeah. So your dad, let's touch on that. Your dad was just recently diagnosed with dementia. Is that correct?
Last year. But he'd been having it. I knew that. But that was the first time I think the doctors really saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. And he is at the VA though now? Is that where he's
that's where he gets his care at the VA.
All right.
And last year, after he was in the hospital, and he was real confused, really, really confused. Yeah. He stayed with me for a while. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you what happened.
Ready.
I got in his vehicle because I was going to take him back and forth to his home because, I work kind of self-employed, so I could go do things. And we would, go back to his house, so he would have some time there and then come back to my house. So one day, I was in my office doing something, and my son come over and he says, "Mom, where's grandfather?" I said, "He's sitting out in the yard, in the garage." "No, he's not out there, and his truck is gone." I was like, "What? His truck is gone?"
Oh, crap. That's the only answer you can do. What?
I knew he was up to something. I could tell the way he was talking to me that he was up to something. But
how old is your dad? How old was he?
He is now 92, okay?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Beverly.
Somebody should have taken those keys away a minute ago.
Fiercely independent. Okay?
Oh, my.
Yeah. So my son was so upset. And he says, "Should I go look for him?" I said, "No." I said, "I believe he probably went home, and I have some cameras out there." So one of the things I had asked him to do when I thought he was having problems before he was diagnosed, let's just put some cameras outside so I can see you and know that you're okay every day.
Yeah. That's good.
I wanted some in the house, but he wouldn't let me do it, But I put it outside. I said, so he's probably been gone about an hour. I said, let's look on the camera and see if he's there. And so I turned on the cameras and he was pulling up into the yard.
I love that.
When you say, but people do drive with dementia. And a lot of states do not have any laws saying that you can't drive. Some states require the doctor to contact the motor vehicles office. Even your insurance may not give you any difference as long as it's not late stage, because in late stage you're going to be unable to drive. unable. But I did get him to come back for a while. Let me say, but it was hard. But I did get someone. He has a friend now that drives him.
Well, and I think that's what's so hard is that loss of independence. But it sounds like you transitioned him. The first step was the cameras, and that's sneaky. We have not heard anybody talk about like, hey, I talked him in. I'm not surprised that he didn't want, especially daughter, Mel. You know what I mean? But I've also got other friends that would have a friend who told me that she put cameras up in her apartment because her mom lived with her. And that when she was gone, she worried about her mom falling. And I swear to you, and you can't even make this up, Beverly. She had a camera in the hallway and the mother would leave the door open and she would use the bathroom and she would shoot her the finger because she was so mad that there was a camera, and she did it on purpose. And it's alarming yet so funny at the same time. And she goes, I was like, well, that was my mom's personality. And I just looked at it like, I get it. You don't like the cameras. Me neither.
Yeah. But if they don't live with you, you have to be able to monitor them somehow. And I got this idea. Well, my daddy hunts, so he had some deer cameras. He had posted up on on a tree so he could see the deer come in that area. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So I said, for you. So we did. And I'm still there. So I look at him. If I don't call him or he don't call me, I just look at those cameras until I see him, and I can see when he leave, when he come back. I ain't got good at playback on those cameras, so I got it down now.
Oh my gosh!
Gosh, Jay, I can't believe it. Our time is up, and I know, right?
I know. We're gonna have Beverly back because I've had so much fun, and I'm like, okay, we need more. Like she's got so much more.
It's time for sister questions. Let's
get on this. But I have a serious sister question. Is that okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so you've been caring forever because of your nursing background. You got into care with your husband, and then you're caring for your dad now, which is just a journey. I know you've had some other care experiences. Has it made you a better, I know you're not practicing now as a nurse full time. Has it made you a better nurse, though, in your mind, a better caregiver when you're talking with other people because of these caregiving experiences?
You mean now you have firsthand experience, not professional, but now it's personal. So what I do now, I can understand people better. I worked for hospice in a hospice place. I started working hospice about 2 years before my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And I believe that the Lord sent me to that place because it was not a place I wanted to work at. But one of my friends said, come on, Beverly, let's come over here. You'll like it. And I did enjoy helping families, switching my focus from getting people healthy, but preparing them for what's coming down the line. And for the patient that you're going to be healed. Not the way, maybe not physically healed, but spiritual healing. And helping the family transition to that. So when my husband got ill, I said, Lord sent me there for a reason.
Yeah. He did send you there for a reason. Yeah. It was to prepare you. Yeah. And I really believe in things like that. And, I always hear about people saying, we pray for healing. And the reality is, and they feel like God didn't answer their prayer. But my friend Paul, when he passed and he was eaten up with cancer, he was in his 40s, and he was sick at the same time, Beverly. And I prayed for him and I just kept thinking, I'm like, why can't Paul get better? And it hit me because he did get better.
Yes.
He just wasn't better here.
Just wasn't here. That's right.
Just wasn't here. And I'm grateful for that. I mean, it makes me tear up because Paul was such a great person and he had done so many wonderful things. And I think that's the hardest thing. And you're right about God giving you, he opened those doors and he put you exactly where you were supposed to be. And I think you going and really trying to educate men, especially Black men, on take care of yourself. And this is the why behind it. And I don't want this to happen to you is exactly the same feeling that we had with starting the podcast. I'm about to get on my TED Talk on my thing, Jay. It's exactly why we started the podcast, because we just don't want other people to have to experience what we experienced.
And the statistics for Black men is so bad. because it's the last one in. So because they are late stage diagnosis in stage 3 or 4, or of just about every disease is in stage, then they are more likely to die. 40% of the Black men will die from cancer just because they were diagnosed in late stage.
Wow.
Wow. My brother who was ill, he did die also. And he was he was 59. And he didn't have a POA, he didn't have a wife, he didn't have children. And so there are 8 of us. So there was a lot of family dynamics going on with a person whose don't have a POA.
That's a coming back moment, Nellie, right there. She is going to come. We're going to talk about that. There. When you're not prepared, no Beverly. When you're not prepared.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it was a ordeal. I'd never been on that side. I'd never been on that side of that. I've been a healthcare worker that's helping families, but I'd never been caught up into the dynamics of dying in a family when you don't know what their wishes are.
Yeah.
You don't know what their wishes are. And so it was an eye opener for me. And I'm going to tell you right now, my brother died in December. I'm still healing from his death and the dynamics, because all of us were at different stages in our acceptance and of his death and his dying. And then you get caught up, no matter how you try, somehow you get caught into the drama and pulled in, and then you lose your focus. And I did. I was trying to stay focused on him. I was trying to stay focused with his health care. But then I don't know. It's just like it just went, I lost my focus. And then you have to, figure out how to get back to him. But the thing is, and this is what I say at the end for people at the end of the day, if you know in your heart that you did all you could for that person, then you will be at peace with yourself.
Oh, Beverly.
Oh man, I'm not even gonna ask any more questions. I'm gonna leave it right there, Jay.
That's there.
Beverly, that's
the heart.
If there's anything that is a takeaway, give yourself grace. You did the best that you could.
That's right.
There's no grade on this one.
Yeah,
that's right.
Thank you, Beverly.
And be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, Beverly. Gosh, man,
thank you, Beverly.
Thank you so much for blessing us this morning. You are definitely a sister. You're definitely a sister.
Yes.
Thank you, Beverly.
So, and we will definitely have you come back, Beverly, because I think there's more to chat about and would love to be able to do that. So, guys, until we confess again, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Again, thank you so much for listening. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confessions podcast. Don't forget to visit our website to sign up for our newsletter. You'll also find a video recording of all of our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. Don't worry, all the details are included in the show notes below. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. You may be surprised to find out, but we are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have any medical questions, we recommend that you talk with a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC. Thank you for listening to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast.